Good afternoon, everybody, and should have let in our guest earlier so we could have chatted for a minute. How are you, Representative Garballey? Glad you're joining us today, and I'm just organizing a little bit here. What a crazy few weeks we've had, and really thrilled to have you with us. We're waiting for people to come in. And
happy to be here.
Okay, finally, I can make Kerry a co-host. There we go. Okay, so welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us. I see some regular visitors to today, and which is great. And you were just on actually a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, with Maura Sullivan doing her monthly date, and we're really thrilled because in addition to just talking about civic engagement, we want to talk about one of the highlights. You were involved in two of the highlights in the FY23 budget, which is pretty cool. And I think one of the things we don't sometimes talk enough about is the work that goes in the building itself that really makes a difference in terms of policy moving forward. And we talk about it, but we don't, we're like careful. We don't want to assume things, right? And it's just, you've been a leader, I think, since 2008. So I'm going to introduce you in a minute, but I think it's been a long time. So welcome everybody. We're going to start. We're going to let people come on as they come on, and make sure we try to squeeze in the full narrative today. So today's August 15th, and it's the last session we're going to have until after Labor Day. So hopefully, I know some of you aren't having a very restful summer because things are not back to normal yet, and we want to talk about that today as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and the PowerPoint for a little bit, and play from the start. Okay, so today the first thing we're going to talk about is Promises Kept part of the dialogue, and it's not like it's one promise or you solve a problem and it's over. It's actually ongoing. And this is what I think this legislative session, despite COVID, despite the hiccups it had. I also want to just, remind people about the schedule. And at the end, we'll ask Kerry about what she has planned coming up. But we're going to start on the Promises Kept side of the ledger today with Representative Garballey, who's been a strong supporter of our issues and your community, your issues, I should say, our joint concerns, really before 2008. It just happened in 2008. He entered the State House. That was the big difference. It's hard to believe, that's 14 years, right? Do you ever say, oh my goodness, right?
Every day.
Yeah, right, yeah. And we did have a parent plan to be here to talk about her story, but I'm going to share her story. I'm actually probably going to share two stories. And we have some great news about the parent that shared her story last week, a great outcome that Kerry and I got to hear about this week. So first, let me introduce, our featured guest, and he's represented the 23rd Middlesex District since 2008, and that's like Arlington and is part of Medford.
Yep.
Is part of that.
Yep.
And he's the House Chair of the Committee on Global Warming and Climate Change. He was recipient of the Legislator of the Year Award 2015, so sort of halftime between entering and today, and he probably deserves another one. So we had, when Speaker DeLeo was there to give the award to somebody a couple of years ago at the end close to the end of his tenure, I didn't even see it coming. He had gotten two recognitions in two different roles, right? And so in the middle of his thing, in the beginning, he goes and he turns around to me and goes, and what's wrong with the third one? So anyway, so clearly you've been right there with us. And I know, we have internally Maura, Charlie, everybody sings your praises. So thank you. And you've been on an area board, right? If I remember right.
Yep.
So an area board for the Department of Development Services. So you've really know your stuff. There was, by the way, a big climate change bill, right? That that is, I think in play. I think he signed it, didn't he? Or
He did, yes, he signed it into law.
Okay, great. So you've had quite the session, and you've been a strong advocate of funding for our services, including Turning 22 and family support. Two of your bills shared with different senators, right? So you're the only common ingredient in the bill, and became policy. And I think we want to focus today more on Macy, because I think you had talked in the other session about the history bill, and it included $4 million in funding. And Macy's the higher education bill. And secondly, the history bill on state institutions, co-sponsored by Michael Barrett, also passed as part of the state budget. So pretty exciting stuff. I have the language there, but I'm going to get off the screen for a minute and have you and I talk a little bit. I don't want to end your visit with us without talking about civic engagement too, because I think this COVID period, we've seen our email hits go down. We've seen people they're exhausted. There's been changes in their lives. There's a lack of services, but we want to talk about that as well. But let's talk about the pretty positive impact. First about Macy, I guess I could put that screen up for a minute, right? And just list some of the good stuff about it, right? Why not? Sorry for the small print, folks. I should have had it on two different slides. This is like an outline of it, okay, just to be clear. But it really, what it does is it's discretionary grant program. School districts and public institutions of higher education to partner together to offer inclusive concurrent enrollment. And it's ages of 18 to 22, but they don't have to stop at 22, right? They're allowed to go beyond that. I think the 26, is what I recall in the bill. It might not even be an upper age limit. You don't have to pass MCAS, right? You can take credit or non-credit courses. You can, the school districts help to provide the supports and service and accommodations, right? Especially between 18 and 22. Obviously after 22, the school districts are not on the dime for those accommodations. And I don't know if that made it easier for higher education to accept this bill, right? Because we had some issues, right? In the previous sessions of getting it past Jump Street. Well, it was past Jump Street. The question was whether it would pass, period, right? So, but that was one of the biggest things. You might want to speak to that there was not out of ignorance, not out of bias, but more out of fear, right, of the costs of the program. But I'd love for you to speak to the barriers you might have to overcome. And then the bill, the language, I'm calling it a bill, but that's really, the language is a bill in the budget, which, by the way, the House, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, how rare that is, right? For us to have that happen coming from the Senate, right? It's focused on underserved communities and districts to participate. I think that's hard to do post-COVID. Hopefully people will stretch and make that extra recruitment, right, on the administration side. You can't really control that, but that's a desire of the language. By the way, Mac led on this, but I just want people in the audience to know, because they would not have heard if they saw the release, that Maura helped recruit people to testify on the bill. The TV, the Globe editorial had someone, Maura Sullivan, recruited to be the subject of it. And throughout the process, we would get texts about helping out, in terms of supporting your efforts on the House side, supporting efforts on the Senate side, and of course, getting the governor to sign it and not potentially do any I would say, written comments. So I don't think he would have vetoed it outright. There's no way he would have, but he might have edited it, right, as he's done on other stuff. And then waiving of tuition is part of it. So anyway, so that's a bit of the overview of it. Let me get off the share screen so people can see you and have you. Yeah, how do I do that? I can spotlight you instead of just having only you. Let's do that. Spotlight you. Okay, here you go. All right. So that's the overview. You want to talk about the bill first and your, why you were so supportive of it first, and then we could talk about the logistics of it and give them some behind the scenes dope.
Great.
On how this happens. Well, anyway, welcome. And it's great to have you.
Great. It's great to be with you, Leo. First of all, I've known you for many, many years, and I really appreciate the relationship that we have and the strong advocacy. that you come towards in your role at the ARC. And it's something that is really, really important for legislators to have a leader like you that we're able to turn to and have conversations with and strategize with. And I know you because you are very busy, you obviously have some wonderful advocates at the State House physically, almost daily, in Morris Sullivan and Charlie Fisk. And, I consider them, I'm a little biased because they're both very close friends, but they're just really strong advocates for not just these two bills that we got passed, but a whole plethora of issues, from the workforce issues to turning 22 issues, you name them. And, as we celebrate the victories that we've had this session around individuals with developmental disabilities, it allows us to really re-engage in the work, right? Because there's a whole host of bills that did not pass. There's a bunch of items related to the budget and the eco-dev bill that did not make it over the hurdle. And so as we come and we reflect on the good things that happened, we also keep in mind that we have a lot more work to do. And that's one of the reasons legislators like myself continue to run for re-election, because we're not done. If we got everything done that we wanted to, we wouldn't run for re-election. So there's a number of bills that, I have filed, from the hospital training bill to other priorities of the ARC that have yet to get passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. So I'm committed to that. And so I look forward to the work in the future. But this really is about reflecting on what we were able to get done this session. And the Macy bill, or the opportunities for students with developmental disabilities and autism, is so critically important to me. I call it my baby because literally I've been working on it for a decade. It has taken that long to get through. So many of you might be aware of the Massachusetts Inclusive Concurrent Enrollment Initiative, with the acronym MACE. And this is a program that is currently, or before the governor signed our bill into law, would run as a grant program that we would that we put in the budget every year at around $2 million to allow individuals with students with developmental disabilities and autism to be able to be enrolled in college courses. But it was limited to a very select few students because we did not have incredible amounts of funding. And it was only enrolled in, I believe, about 13 schools, maybe 15. So not all 29. And so I want people to be aware that this has been a program that has been ongoing for a pretty long time with enormous success. The students love it. Their peers in the classrooms love it. Professors love it. I would even say college presidents love it. But this has been a very difficult bill to be able to get passed. And there's a whole group of issues around that, from cost, from unintended consequence concerns, concerns that, quite frankly, I never believed were really realistic. To be honest with you, but part of battling and trying to get legislation passed is trying to, put a bill forth that as many stakeholders as possible can get behind, can support, and a bill that can get, the vote and support by the House, by the Senate, and signed into law by the governor. So the premise of this bill and why it's so, the law, and why it's so groundbreaking is true. We've had the grant program for many years, but Massachusetts, with this law, becomes the first state in the country in our law to allow students the opportunity with autism and developmental disabilities, the chance as non-matriculating students to go to college, whether it be UMass, whether it be one of our state universities or one of our community colleges, and they're able to be included. And that's what this is. That's what this really was all about. It was always about making sure that these students would be included in everything from coursework to college campus life to internships. You know, as students with autism and Down syndrome and other developmental disabilities, as they get older, right, and they're in their junior year or their senior year of high school, they watch their peers go off to college, maybe even a sibling go off to college, and you know, they witness themselves not being able to do that. And they're fully aware that they don't have the same opportunities as their siblings, as their peers. And for so long, that has just been absolutely wrong. And, you know, over the 10 years, we've seen parents, we've seen self-advocates, we've seen the students themselves come before us during the testimony and testify about how they want to be included. And not only that they want to be included, that they can and they should, under the law, be included. And we would have professors who had students, these types of students in their classroom, come and say, hey, you know, I was concerned in the beginning. You know, I was concerned about the supports around these students to make sure that they can be successful. I was concerned maybe about, you know, how this would impact the other students in the classroom. But what the other students and what the professors quickly realize is those students with autism and developmental disabilities, given the opportunity to be included in their classroom, thrived. And they not only thrived with the right supports, they made the class better for their peers, better for the professor, more enriching. And what could be more important for our general ed students in a 21st century education about, you know, their future, than to make sure that there's a population that's representative of society also they're learning with them as well. And so this law really is groundbreaking, and one of my favorite pieces of it, and Charlie can tell you this because I texted him about it, is in section 2. It clearly says that no student shall be denied the ability to attend public higher education because of a disability alone. And that really is groundbreaking. And Massachusetts is the first state in the country to have this in our law. It's a shame that it's taken this long for it to happen. But we have to celebrate that it has. And to make sure that this program can be successful, because it's one thing just to say we're going to do the program and that's it. It needs to be funded. And so as Leo mentioned early on, the program sets up a trust fund. We go from $2 million to $4 million to make sure that it's adequately funded. And that we go from, you know, the schools that were participating in it with the grant program now opened up to all 29 campuses to allow for these students. And these students, as was said, they don't have to pass the MCAS test. They don't even have to graduate high school to be included. And that's what this is all about. This is about inclusion. And I will tell you, and I out any of my colleagues, but early on, I would have colleagues ask me, why are you so passionate about this bill? Why is this bill so critical? And obviously it's about inclusion, our students being included. That's what this is all about. That's the umbrella, but that's not the foundation of why this bill is so important. There have been studies done. So you might know that UMass Boston is the setting for the Institute of Inclusion for the entire country. And there are other schools that allow students with disabilities and autism to take courses, but we are the first state to have it in statute, which is so critically important. These studies that have been done would compare students who were allowed to take courses, to go, open the door and to take courses, compared to students that were not able to take courses. When you measure their outcomes, when it comes to independence, when it comes to employment, these students are that much more successful. So this is obviously this is about inclusion, but this is about their own success in the future. And so that's why we're so proud of this legislation. And there's also going to be a commission that will be analyzing the work of the implementation of this new law passed with the FY23 budget to make sure that it's being implemented the way we want it to be implemented. And I can't say enough, Leo and Charlie and Maura, how critical of a role the ARC played in helping get this bill passed and getting this through the hurdle. And I have filed and refiled and filed and refiled and filed and refiled again and again. And we can talk about what the blockade was in being able to get this back. But for now, this is about really celebrating.
I mean, 10 years, people don't appreciate that's 5 sessions, right? And many bills at that point, right? The advocate like yourself might say, okay, I've been giving it a shot. I think I got to focus on some other things, because we're not making the movement. There was a big meeting. Was it 2 terms ago? Was it 2 sessions ago? That, the main folks that were fighting it, right, were invited. And that pretty much, instead of resolving things, it almost, I have to assume, right, people ended up digging in their heels about the program.
So when you're looking at a piece of legislation and you're trying to get everybody to come to yes and rally around a particular piece of legislation and not be obstructionists, right, and being able to get a bill passed, you look at the language, right, and you look at the language and you do a bunch of things. But the first thing you do is what is absolutely essential in terms of the language that needs to stay to make sure our goal remains, right?
Right.
And then from there, we met with the superintendents, we met with the higher education officials, we met with special ed directors, and we learned their concerns, right? We met with the president of UMass and we would learn their concerns, what they were worried about. And then, you try to take that feedback and try to make potential changes to the bill that doesn't change the goal of the bill, but tries to get people to embrace it and to address those unintended potential consequences. And we did that many sessions, and the bill still didn't get passed. I think some of that, quite frankly, there was a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but there was quiet concern about this population being on a college campus. I think that is the fact. I will tell you, when I filed the bill 10 years ago, I had someone come into my office, not affiliated with the State House, but they told me, please don't file this bill. Please don't file it. And I was kind of shocked, when someone says something to you so profound that you get numb. And I said to this person, why? And this person was convinced that passing this bill would negatively impact the general ed students' education on a college campus. And I never viewed it that way. I always viewed it as lifting all boats together, right? That these students being included only helps strengthen the college experience for everybody. And so I was shocked that that's what this individual told me, but it also taught me that I need to be prepared, and that this wasn't going to be a bill that was going to be easily passed, that I had to do a lot of work on it, that I had to build support for it within the House and with Joan Lovely in the Senate. And that's exactly what we did. Took a little longer than any of us had anticipated or wanted, but the outcome is remarkable. And I think Massachusetts is going to lead the way for the rest of the country on getting these bills passed into law.
I think, what you just described about, I assume it could have been a constituent that came and talked to you. It's the tip of the iceberg on bias, right? I mean, and it's an easy one, for people to use, because, oh, well, what are you doing here, but in fact, it's deeper than that, isn't it? It's not appreciating, you said it a good way. You talked about how it helps everybody, all the students, by having students with disabilities there. But it also, the student with the disability, it recognizes that he or she has the same rights as anyone else, which so often, well, yeah, that might be true. Somebody might say, but then I have to pay for it. I might have to pay for support services, or I might have to, there's always a but or an if. And that's what that's what you're doing in the building. That's what you're doing with a bully pulpit, to try to get past that. But people, it's not an immediate thing to get rid of bias, right? It's evolutionary. And I think that's part of why this bill was so difficult. I think this bill, in a way, is a more nuanced way of getting at bias and discrimination, the success of it. It doesn't get rid of it all, never does. We know that from a recent president. But, it still is a step in the right direction. It's more than a step in the right direction. Did you know when the end of the session was near? I'm just dying from an inside ballpark kind of thing, okay? And I'm sure people are too, right? Hopefully people listening are like, oh, I can't believe Leo's asking some inside ball questions. But did you have a sense of the support in the House? Because you have 160 members, right? Give or take. I don't know if it was all full at the time, right? Because people went to other jobs potentially and whatever. But it's quite a few people, okay? You do have, a speaker, you do have leadership, but leadership doesn't just wave a wand and say, okay, this is the year for this bill. It's going to happen, right? You have to show, the grunt work, the policy work, right? And you and whatever colleagues are supporting it. Did you have a sense coming to the end of the session that there was a real chance for the bill to move in your branch?
So it's a great question, Leo. I really did, because we thought we had a real good opportunity of getting the bill passed last session. And then, just like everything else, was uprooted due to COVID. And so the bill it wasn't going to make it, through the last session. So we thought this session, we really had an opportunity to get this passed. But the voices of quote unquote unintended consequences popped their head up near the end of the process, after we had met with them, for years. And then, said, oh, we have another concern. We have, ever play whack-a-mole at the arcade where you hit one and then another one pops up? Well, that's what happened. We kept addressing these issues. We kept thinking that we got buy-in, and then another issue would emerge. I would categorize it as maybe a made-up issue would emerge. But we did think we had a chance. We were really excited about it. But certainly in legislature, there's no guarantee. And so we just did everything we could with, talking to leadership, talking to our colleagues, really trying to get this in the radar of my colleagues and advocates like yourselves and MAC. And MDSC were just so powerful in getting this in front of their colleagues that it truly made the difference in this case.
So when you, but that meant the Ways and Means and the speaker and some leadership had to feel like you had enough people, right? What do we want to call it, juice, or, that they, because I don't know if the speaker's going to take the time to really get into the issue, right? One of his staff might, right? So you have to know the bill gets into the Senate, you're feeling confident at that point. And then you've got,
So, yeah, no, Leo, I will say, what's great about this speaker, and there's a lot of good things about Speaker Mariano, but one thing in particular is Speaker Mariano was a teacher.
yes.
So he's had students with Down syndrome, students with autism in his classroom before he was a rep,
Right.
way before he was speaker. And when he was majority leader, remember, we've been working on this for 10 years. So when he was majority leader, I went to him and, I think the ARC went to him, Julia Landau went to him, sat down with him, walked him through the bill. And he said to me many times, he said, this bill is the right thing to do, but we have to make sure, we address some of the unintended consequences. We need to make sure we get as many people on board as possible. And, he made it very clear to me that if we did the work, if I did that, then, he would support it. And so it was good to have his support way back when he was majority leader, just based on his experience as a teacher, that inclusion is so important and the right way to go. And so with him as Speaker of the House and Chairman Michaelowicz, who was very supportive of the bill, I really thought we had a strong chance of being able to get, quote unquote, something done, but something that's valuable. Right. A lot of things get done in the budget, but they can look a lot different than what the bill was intended. And this is almost a full loaf.
No, and I would say this bill's the policy items that went in, right? This is of the three we've been talking about, the meatiest, right? The most overarching.
And the ARC was just so helpful in being able to, if you think about legislation as pushing a big rock up a hill, it was just so helpful getting their support and pushing that rock up this hill and being able to get it, over that hill.
So and people's civic engagement, people don't realize, like, whether it's MAC finding someone or MDSC or whoever. I know in our case, the more people we have that have expressed their preference for something or their struggle with something, the better we do, because then we know you're there. We can leverage that. We know you've talked to Representative so-and-so or Senator so-and-so. How does that impact you when constituents talk to you about their stories and or your colleagues? You might have a story about a colleague who could have given a damn about this topic and a constituent changed her or his mind.
It's huge. 7,000 bills get filed every 2 years between the House and the Senate. And, you'll have a lot of reps who work on issues around general education, around public safety, veterans, the environment, mental health, public health. There's a whole, transportation, right? As the orange line burns to the ground, literally, right. There's a whole host of issues that are, valuable issues, right? Important issues that are keeping the minds of reps, right? And when a rep gets elected, they prioritize certain areas, right? And areas they're going to work on. And, at the end of the day, they represent their constituents. So when they hear from their constituents on particular subject matters, on particular issues, on particular bills, on budget amendments, that wins the day. It really, really does. So I always tell advocates with the ARC or MAC or MDSC or advocates for autism that it is so critically important for you to know your rep, to get to know your rep. And I do realize the past 3 years have been really difficult to do that with the global pandemic. But as we move forward, it is so valuable whether you go to office hours, where you email your rep, talk to your rep, introduce your kid or your family to your rep.
Right.
Most reps that I know want to be engaged in these issues. And so if they know that they have a constituent, living these issues, it becomes their priority. So I think it's not only critically important, it's the way to be successful, which is
Right.
most important.
All right, that's great. All right, and I'm like really tempted to get into a few more things, but I can't because I promised we'd spend some of the time on Promises Unkept. I have no idea what, where folks are at out there. We're gonna have to do this again in 3 months or something if you've got the time, really. I don't think there's many reps or senators who can do what you just did, listing 4 or 5 organizations without looking at notes. So that's another indicator of how involved you are. Just want people, so don't want to take for granted that he reflects the mass of legislators. Not that I'm knocking anybody. I'm just saying he's sort of at this level, in terms of his content knowledge and his passion and his performance. And this has been, I've just got to say, an unbelievable session, and where you've really, all that work you've done since 2008, all your travails, all your, learning and caring, it just, pretty cool. Not that there haven't been other victories, turning 22 and getting the governor to triple that a few years ago, and the support on the workforce and other things, and family support especially, and along with turning 22. But you've just, it just is pretty cool what happened this session, as with the pieces that have gone through. So you're welcome to stick around to hear some of this, but you're also welcome. I know you're busy, so I don't want to keep you, prolong your visit with us, but I just can't thank you enough for sharing with us today. And again, really appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. So I want to, let me take the spotlight off you so we can get other people. If so, I promised today, I want to give a good news about the person that was, basically our interviewee last week, right, Kerry? Had some great news from Christine. She came on how her son could not find any place. He was on 11 waiting lists, turning 22. And I wish, by the way, this was a true outcome for all of you. I know we still have 35% of people not having, being able to get services. No, it's something in the chat there too. So everybody's thanking you, by the way, Sean. A lot of thanks, Rep. But Christine reported that her son was, going to be able to start this week at ASA, right? That's what we heard. And including because of his training at NAC that she had shared, he'll be, also having job experiences right away. So that's a pretty cool outcome. We don't always see that kind of quick outcome. She turned out through a personal contact, leveraged that possibility. So I just want to share that with all of you. Yeah, it is great news, Lisa. Yeah, it's awesome. So we were really thrilled because we don't hear that quick turnaround that often. I was going to share a couple of stories with you today, one on eligibility and one, Lori, who's been on with us so many times, is very well known. But given we only have like about 7 minutes left, I want to offer you people here today, the opportunity to share any story they want to share with us. And something, and if we don't have any, I will share one of, what's going on and what we're again continuing to try to do in terms of moving ahead, getting us past COVID and the COVID workforce shortage that exists. So first, does somebody, have something that they want to share with us first?
Yeah, Deborah Stevens raised her hand, so.
Hi,
Hi, Deb. Go ahead.
how are you?
Good to see you.
Good, thank you. So Carly moved into residential care a little over a year ago. We had it was planned, she's 31, it was planned by us in our heads saying by the time she's 30. But at the same time, just before that, my husband broke a hip, which is exactly why you got to plan for these things. And so all we needed to do at that point was pick a move date. She had already visited and things were set up. We picked a place that is 2 miles from her day program. She can't get back into her day program.
Oh,
Yeah, she's been out for over 2 years. So here we picked a place 40 minutes from us, but 2 miles from the day program. So she wasn't traveling 40 minutes plus to the day program, and she hasn't been able to get back.
and she can't get back because of transportation or
No,
because of the
because
day
of
program?
staffing. She gets a 1-to-1.
Okay,
And for people don't know, Carly possibly Rett syndrome, but which looks like a combination of autism and cerebral palsy. And so she's in a wheelchair. She's very, very active, and doesn't do well when she sees attention going to other people, because it's like, wait, I know somebody needs to be taking care of me. And that's how I see it. So the house has been a little bit understaffed, but they're working on that. They did get things better there.
so Deb, is
But I can't get her
Carly,
back to day. Go ahead.
Deb, is Carly, I remember during COVID, you had staff from the day program working at home,
We
with you
did
guys.
for a little
And it went
while.
really well. Is there, obviously, they're not going to release someone from the day program to the house because
No,
they're
No,
understaffed.
Carly Zooms twice a week with the day program. So that keeps her enrolled in the day program. How well she participates and pays attention, actually paying attention to a TV screen directly isn't something she didn't do. She's paying more attention. She pays more attention to me. She pays more attention to things that are on the screen now.
Oh,
There's one
great.
benefit there.
yeah.
But again, that's like an hour twice a week. It keeps her enrolled in the day program. It keeps money coming to the day program for her. What happens is, and what I am told is that they go to hire people to fill their current need, and then somebody else resigns, so that they are still always in catch-up mode to hire people. And because she is, and we've tried, less than 1-to-1 with her, and it just doesn't work very well there. Because she is 1-to-1, they have to find, not only do they have to staff what's there, but then they have to, I think they're staffing who's ever not 1-to-1 first, and then she's like high on the list. But again, if they keep losing people, they
Right.
can't then get, yeah.
Wow.
So then you've got some of her housemates do go out, at least one of them goes out to day program. I think the other 3 are home. She has 4 housemates. I think the other 3, maybe one goes out, but 1 or 2 at home. And so she's not, and she needs to go back. So was there I guess, so my question to you is there something, was there some additional monies in the budget to help support people who are having difficulty to return to day program? Because that means I can then push the
Right.
area office, and they've been doing a remarkable job. I had a really fabulous, I bumped into a service coordinator who has been spending 1-to-1 time with my daughter once a week.
That's
And
great.
And she gets her, she understands it. She goes, the wheels are turning in, and she says she's got a sense of humor, and she sees all of these things and she reports on it, which is great, because that means she's seeing her when she's not distressed. She's seeing her when she's happy and engaged, and able to report about a happy, engaged person when there's 1-to-1. But again, she's a service coordinator who's filling in a state operated home.
But you know what? I have to say, I just got to commend that service coordinator, and I commend
Oh,
you
yeah.
for the story, because one of the things we've been talking to DDS about is how can there be an extra effort at the area office level to work through these things, right? So in Carly's
And
situation.
they are, I think they are in many ways.
Yeah, no, and
No
your
bunch of
story they are, and I'm
problems.
hoping it's statewide. We don't get a lot of feedback. You would think we would, right? We'd get, if we're saying more needs to be done, oh, we are doing this, we're doing that, that's what we would expect to hear back, right? So and we don't, unfortunately, but when you share that story, it makes, obviously,
Mhm.
tells us there are clearly people that are committed.
No,
So,
they
one of the
put out a
things,
call, and they asked what people could maybe spend extra time in a variety of homes. And again, this Carly gets the 1-on-1, they have a mat on, they play.
so what could happen, Deb? Let me share this that other people can benefit, and then we're going to be signing
go.
off. One of the things that could happen, and if you want to share, by the way, I'd love to record your story. Okay,
Absolutely.
for advocacy with legislators. One
Yeah.
of the things that would be helpful is for you to know, there is money, if money is not being used. So we pushed in the legislature, the House first, then the Senate, agreed to kick up the money by $50 million, okay, in day and transportation, significantly. It's huge, right? It still is not probably at the 100% level because we couldn't make a case for the 100% level at the time. But we said we'd come back. But there is money, the House language that the Senate accepted has bridge funding that would allow for her, not necessarily maybe the day program could get it, but it's really more for you, for that residence. Maybe it gets a little more
Right.
one-one temporarily, right?
Right.
And that would be something, say you understand there's bridge funding. If there's an issue, let us know, because we've
Bridge
asked,
funding,
we've told
code
DDS.
words.
Yeah, use those words. We've told DDS we're going to follow up with them. So sometimes we get things in and we assume folks are doing it right administratively, and they don't necessarily, not because they don't want to, because they're busy, right? And no one's assigned to do that. So that's something that we would advocate for.
Okay.
And in fact, I'd probably start at the secretary level, so no one's expecting automatic savings in that line item, right? Because the commissioner doesn't have control over that. Sometimes that's at an upper level. And the House made a commitment for that. They did it for a reason. They did it out of caring and knowing the
Just so you
crisis.
know that the recording froze a little bit, so I missed a little bit about what you said, but keep going.
So what I'm saying is you should let us know if you just get like a blank stare. But we will be following up in September with the administration on it and making sure that people access those dollars, or at least give it a try. And then the hard part is the House has got to find somebody, right, to do that and do that work. So we still have the workforce shortage. So, but at least there's another way to get some individualized support. That's not just sitting around at home. Okay.
Right. I mean, they are getting her out. And they are they've brought her up here. We've met at the mall. I met them the other week at the mall. And so they are getting her out, and then they're realizing, oh, if we get her out, she gets tired, and she gets tired, she sleeps better, So
Yeah.
they're realizing a lot of things that they're doing are having a very positive impact, and therefore they are doing those things. We also had a lot.
And she's happy, right? She's happy. She's connecting. Well, when she does those things, I assume.
Pretty much. But I'll just say that one of the things we had a lot of disruption with a lot of changes in staff. And then you've got people who have very high needs. And when there are this many changes in staff, you're always starting over.
Right.
And
No,
starting over,
Deb,
starting over.
yeah, just to wrap it up, I'd like to say,
Thank you.
I assume Carly's in a home where there's other people that the reason they're not at the day programs, they need one-to-one, or they need some part of the day one-to-one. So that's a particularly tough situation. What I want to do is, Diane just chatted in. She's
Okay.
in a similar situation with Anna. Diane, I think you need to ask for that bridge dollars too. We'll follow up with DDS on this in September. Before September, Diane, I know you've been dealing with this for a while, so if you want me to shoot an email to someone, let me know.
Did an email and give us some detail on that so that I can
Yeah.
quote
Yeah,
it.
it's basically what you're gonna say is, we understand the House said if money's not being spending in the day because of the, attendance isn't up. And if it is being spent, we'll ask for more money. Okay, let me just be really clear. If it turns out people tell you we're spending the money, but it's basically something we have to also help free up at the state level. So people at the area offices know they can access the dollars. And you have a state op, they can clearly access dollars. Okay, she's in a state run?
Mhm.
Oh, they can say, please, we understand there's bridge money. Please, either through your account or the day services account, please request additional funding to see about someone until they're able to re-enroll her for the, and say, not to duplicate that hour a day, but to get that assistance, obviously, when she needs it, because you want the hour a day to keep her enrolled in the day program. You don't want to see that disappear. So they're still invested in bringing her back.
But they need
And let us know.
to
Email Carrie or I.
basically
Let
there's
us
only
know
3
if
hours
you
a day
just-
of anything extra.
Yeah, if you just get a wall, just let us know, because we have to do work. We have more, we were again waiting till September, because that's how the state budget is, right? It gets approved in June or July, and then, takes a while. So I just want to tell everybody, Carrie, I'm assuming you don't have webinars till September, right?
Correct, yeah, but
Okay.
we got a jam-packed September and October, so.
Right, and we've talked about the transition sessions. I want to encourage people to go to the arcofmass.org or arcmass.org. I also want to encourage people to support our advocacy, support what we do here, because that's really how we do it, you know. And I want to end with, you know, taking a break for a few weeks. We'll be back here on September 12th. I just want to say just how, again, how it's been important working together, sharing which these stories, helping us be as educated as possible. And let's get some stuff done. And I also want to end with thanking Representative Sean Garballey for joining us today. And he's special and really appreciate it. And
Hang on for a minute.
Charlie was on, and I would have said it while he was here, just a heads up to him and Maura, Kerry, Kathleen,
just
and the
listening
team
to
here that are doing so much. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on the other side of September.
No, it's over.
All right,
Just wanna
bye-bye.
say thank you.
Take care.